Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mr. Walker's Apes. Today we'll be talking about Chapter 14, which is on food production. And I've broken up this chapter into 3 different videos. So in this video we're going to cover sections 1, 2, and 5, which are about how do we produce food, and how has production changed over the last couple of decades. So, for all 3 of these videos, the main key concepts are these 4 things. How do we produce the food? How do we increase food production to meet an increasing population? What environmental effects does that have? And then how do we alleviate some of those environmental effects? So this video is about the producing food and increasing food production. Then I've got one on the environmental effects and one on the solutions. So the really big question here is, can we produce enough food to feed the human population and do it without destroying the earth? So there are some big things that first, in order to answer this question, you just have to do. We're going to have to increase the amount of food we can get from some piece of land, which is that first bullet, increasing land productivity. We need to distribute the food more effectively. We can't be taking days or months to get food to places, and can't always be relying on fossil fuels to do that. And we need to reduce the negative environmental impact from agriculture, which are actually quite substantial. Agriculture contributes a lot of pollution to the existing amount of pollution. And we need to avoid creating new problems like pests that are resistant to pesticides and things like that. Okay, so now we're going to get into just some basic facts. How do we farm and what are we farming? So globally, this is the breakdown, all right? Globally, about 76% or 3/4 of all food that humans eat consists of wheat, corn, and rice. So I would definitely jot down that number or keep it in your brain somewhere. All right, most of our food comes from wheat, corn, or rice. And think about it. If you go to the grocery store and you pick up a box of something, the odds that one of the first ingredients will be wheat, corn, or rice is pretty high. You think about corn syrup in soda. Think about wheat, corn, and rice for various cereals. Pasta is wheat or rice pasta. If you get some of the gluten-free. You look at Chinese and Asian foods, it's all rice, okay? So, not a big shocker there, but maybe something you didn't know. About 17% is used for rangeland. That's beef, pork, and chicken. And then the remaining 7% is for your fish and shellfish from the ocean. And even though only 7% of our food comes from the ocean, it's the primary source of protein for a large part of the planet. Most people live near the coast or some sort of water where they get their fish, and that's their main source of protein because it's a lot easier to fish a fish than it is to raise an entire cow or pig or chicken. Okay, so if those are our food sources, what are the main ways that we get them? So the major types of crop production here. So remember, crops make up 75% of what we eat. All right. Major types of crop production: industrialized agriculture or high input agriculture. I'm going to talk a lot about inputs. Inputs are water, fertilizer, pesticides, and other chemicals to help keep things growing the way we want them to and to have really high productivity. All right. Plantation agriculture. Plantation agriculture we'll talk about. Traditional subsistence agriculture and traditional intensive agriculture. All right, so let me describe them to you, and then after I describe them, we'll go back and see if you can put them in the order of development, kind of like the demographic transition. What's the agricultural transition? All right, so industrialized agriculture, like I said, is high input. We're putting in lots of fossil fuels, lots of water, lots of chemicals to make plants grow. This is what we do in the United States and parts of Europe. One farmer with several tractors and lots of chemicals is growing lots of food for lots of people. And in order to do that and to have the crop output that they need to have to make money, they have to use a lot of fertilizer and things like that. Plantation agriculture is practiced a lot in the tropics. This is where it's several people, possibly a family or a community, watching after a plantation of, say, sugarcane. And they will do all the harvesting or most of the harvesting manually. They plant the seeds manually. They look after it manually, going out getting the bugs and all of that. And they're growing food not just for themselves. It's a monoculture. Monoculture meaning one type of plant that they're growing with the intent to sell most of it. So like I said, sugarcane, bananas, pineapple, those sorts of things. Traditional subsistence agriculture is small scale. This is one family making enough food just for themselves. Subsistence means, to have just enough. So these are very small scale farmers. They're not selling crops to make money. They're growing many, many different types of food for their families to eat. And traditional intensive agriculture is the same as traditional subsistence agriculture, except that they input more human labor and more animal labor to produce more food than they need, with the intent to sell some of it. So it's still a polyculture. They're growing lots of different types of food, but they're growing more than what their family needs in order to survive. And as such, they can sell some and hopefully work their way up in society. So like I said, go back, rewind if you need to, and see what, if you could put them in the right order and everything, see what you can do there. So we're going to skip these slides. These are pictures, though. We can go over them just really quick. So the industrialized agriculture. Okay, remember, some land, small amounts of labor, though. The farmer's using machinery to do most of the labor, but you need lots and lots of money to buy the machinery, lots and lots of money to buy the fertilizer, the pesticides, etc., and lots of fossil fuel to run all the machinery. Traditional intensive agriculture, lots of labor. Okay, this is all done manually on small plots of land with not much money, just enough to buy the seeds and hardly any fossil fuels. So you can see here, this is like a rice paddy somewhere where they're picking the rice. Now, shifting cultivation in tropical forests. So you can see here they're cutting down the trees. What they're getting ready to do is set up for a plantation. So the labor is not that much, the capital is not that much, and there is no fossil fuel. It's all done manually, but you need lots and lots and lots of land in order to have a plantation. And then nomadic herding is more along the lines of the subsistence farming. So lots of land, a little bit of labor, and some capital put into it to buy your cows or chickens, but just enough for your family usually. So where are these? Where you would expect. United States, Europe, highly industrialized. We're doing, using lots of tractors and everything. And then you can see, like I said, along the tropics here and the equator, you're getting your plantation stuff. Shifting cultivation, they're trying, that's your intensive, they're trying to make more money so that they can move up to either plantation or industrialized. And then nomadic herding is your subsistence farming, just enough to get by. Okay, so your Inuit people, okay, they're not really farming but more herding, just enough for them. People who live in the desert, they're not really going to be able to make enough to sell to other people. All right. So if those are the ways we do it, what has happened that allows us to get to where we are? Well, something called the Green Revolution occurred in the 1950s. And what it is a massive increase in the yield that we're getting. Maybe, for example, you used to be able to feed 20 people on an acre of land. Well, after the Green Revolution and through today, we've upped that number tremendously to where we're feeding several thousand people on a single acre of food. And that comes with scientific research and, of course, inputting more natural capital. Soil, the natural state of soil could not support that much food. But when you're putting tons and tons of fertilizer on there, then you can increase the productivity of the soil. And so in addition to that, it used to be that farmers would grow a single season worth of crops. So in the summer you grew just corn or just wheat or something, and that was it. And during the winter you took the time off or whatever. Well, now they're growing year round. You're doing corn in the summer, wheat in the fall, blueberries in the winter, and something else in the spring. And so that maximizes the use of the land. But again, you're going to have to put in more fertilizer because you're using all those crops are taking up those nutrients, and then you take the plants away in order to sell them so the nutrients don't go back into the soil naturally. So Green Revolution is just the increase in the land productivity. How much food can we get from a single plot of land? And you have to have lots of input. Okay. So where does this occur? Again, very similar to what you saw before. The blue countries have already undergone a green revolution. We are producing huge amounts of food for relatively cheap and able to feed a lot of people. All right, so the 1950s and 1970s, that was your first green revolution. Then 1967 has been our second green revolution. So late 60s through today, these are the countries that are still undergoing this revolution. They're starting to become and starting to use that more highly industrialized agricultural technique. And then the countries that are white here have not yet started a green revolution, either because they don't have enough agriculture to be counted, or they're still doing the subsistence farming traditional techniques. Excuse me. So, in the U.S., where are these things? Well, this is quite a smattering of colors. Let's just try and break it into regions, all right? East Coast, dominated by forest. Okay, so our farming is going to be limited because we have lots of forests. As you can see, we also have the Appalachian Mountains, so it's really difficult to farm in the mountains. And then you move to the Midwest. Okay, Midwest, lots of cropland, corn, wheat, soybeans, etc., all over here. And then rangeland out in the western Midwest. Okay, this cows, pigs, chickens are going to come from here because these are, Nevada is almost all desert. Can't really grow crops in a desert, but if you have a well, you can definitely keep animals, and then you just import your food from the pastures. This like light green color, that's pasture land. Pasture land is cropland dedicated to crops for animals to eat. Okay, these are not going to be sold to people. It's like alfalfa and hay and other sorts of things that go out here for these animals to eat. All right, so you've got these three major sections here, okay? Forest on the east, cropland in the middle, and rangeland in the west. All right, so keep that in mind. So now, if I'm growing all this food, I'm growing it for people to eat. So we need to talk about the nutrition levels. And there are three different nutrition levels. There's undernutrition, malnutrition, and overnutrition. So first, undernutrition. Undernutrition is just you do not get enough calories to survive. In America, they recommend that females get about 1,800 calories per day, males get 2,200 calories per day, and then they average it out and just put 2,000 calories per day in all the packaging. So undernutrition, these people are not even getting half of that. These people are getting less than 400 calories per day. They are literally starving to death slowly. And of course, if you don't get enough food, that leads to lots of problems like mental retardation. Your brain uses 80% of the calories that you intake. So if you're only getting 400 calories a day, your brain is not going to develop properly. Yes, stunted growth. Okay, again, your bones and muscles need lots of nutrients. If they don't get them, they don't grow to full amount. And actually, the reason that one of the biggest reasons that people across the world are getting taller is not because our genetics are any different, or people are only only tall people are having kids. It's just that we're feeding people, and by feeding them, they're able to reach their full growth potential. And of course, you are more susceptible to disease because your immune system cannot work properly. All right, so undernutrition is you're not getting enough food. Malnutrition is different. Malnutrition is you are getting enough food, but it's the wrong stuff. All right. In America, this would be malnutrition would occur in people who eat nothing but junk food. Junk food does not contain any vitamins or nutrients that you really need. It's just all sugar. Well, that's not enough. You can't do just that. All right. And this occurs all over the world. Usually in America, it's because of choice. In other countries, it's because of a lack of something. Maybe there's a lack of protein. All right. So if there's a lack of protein, then you suffer from kwashiorkor. All right. Kwashiorkor is the word that's applied when a person is getting enough calories but not enough protein. So they're going to be very flabby. Okay, their muscles will not be as big. They won't be toned. They can have lots of problems. All right. And then marasmus is you're low in calories and protein. All right, not to the point of undernutrition, but just low, like maybe 12 or 1300 calories per day. But you're also not getting enough protein, so they're just going to be really tiny people in general. Overnutrition is what we suffer from in America. Leads to obesity, heart disease, plaque in your arteries, all sorts of bad stuff. Overnutrition is you're getting too much to eat. Now, you're not going to suffer from any of these diseases, but you're going to have different diseases, and you're going to have heart attacks and strokes and all sorts of problems. So it's really a problem in America, and is now probably one of the top leading causes of death. Also, another interesting statistic for you, Americans on average spend about $36 billion a year to lose weight. That's gym memberships, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, all that stuff. It only takes half that, or a little bit more than half of that, $19 billion a year to feed everyone in the world, to eliminate undernutrition and malnutrition. So if you just eat less so that you're not overnourished, and then use the money that you might have spent to get that junk food or whatever and donate it to UNICEF or another charitable organization, you could help eliminate the undernutrition and malnutrition of the world. And finally, micronutrients. Micronutrients are vitamins and minerals that you need in very, very tiny amounts. Some of them are toxic in large amounts, but you do need some of them. Vitamin A, for example, for your eyes. If you don't get that, your eyes don't develop properly. Iron for your blood. And iodine is for your lymphatic system, I'm pretty sure. If you don't get enough iodine, you suffer from a disease called goiter. And your thyroid gland, which is in your neck, swells up and you look like a frog. It's kind of gross. All right, so why then do we have places that are overnourished? Why are they undernourished or malnourished? Well, there's enough food. All right, if everybody if everybody just got the same amount of food, there's enough food to feed everybody right now. The problem is that food is not distributed evenly. Americans and Europeans get lots and lots of food. We have money to buy food from all over the world. But if you were in a poor African village, you can't afford food from all over the world. You get your local diet, your local food, and that is whatever you can grow and get. It may not be as good. So where are they? Where are we overnourished and undernourished? Well, we do have undernourished people in America. They are starving, but they're in America, but they are less than 2% of the total population. Most of your developed nations are like that. Okay, so Canada, U.S., Greenland, most of Europe, Libya, surprisingly, right? Okay, Libya, Australia, New Zealand, okay, Japan, pretty well off. South Korea, all right. Africa suffering pretty heavily all across the board here. Parts of Asia and South America and Central America are coming up. They're getting better, but then you've still got places like Afghanistan here that are starving. All right. And so we've got to hopefully help those people. So why is food distribution a problem? Well, even in America, okay, this is the poverty cycle. So if you live in poverty, you cannot afford food, or you can only afford junk food, like McDonald's. So as a result, you end up undernourished or malnourished. If you're undernourished or malnourished, you're susceptible to disease, which means that you'll probably die. All right, kind of sucks. If you don't die, all right, then you don't have any energy. Okay, so you grow up, you make it past childhood, but you've been undernourished or malnourished for most of your life. You're not going to have energy. If you don't have energy and your brain uses 80% of your calories, then you can't learn. If you can't learn, you can't get a good job. If you don't get a good job, you actually do die sooner because you don't have good health care. You usually are working in a job that's very labor intensive, etc. If you can't work well, you feed back, okay? And as a result, your family stays in poverty and so on. So this is why we have programs in schools like the free and reduced meals for students. And that's so that hopefully we can break this cycle right in here, okay? We can just say, okay, well, you at home you might be malnourished, undernourished, okay, but you can come to school, you can get the food you need, you can have the energy to learn, if you work hard, you can get a good job, and if you get a good job, you've broken the cycle. Now you can have food every day, and you can appreciate it, and all of that. Okay, so food production and some of the problems with distribution, where we grow food, all these things. So keep this in mind. Where do we grow the food? Where is the food? What types of agriculture are going on in different parts of the world? And why is that? Okay, so why does America have high industrialized food, whereas Africa is still on mostly traditional subsistence farming? All right, so I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.